You ever see something small that's just wrong? Not world-ending, not criminal, just rude. The kind of thing that grates in your chest every time you pass it. That's how this whole story starts. A trash bag, a hedge, and a neighbor who seemed to think public space was her personal dumpster. I live in one of those dense apartment clusters, a handful of low buildings, a communal garden someone actually tries to keep looking nice, and parking spots tight enough to cause fights. It's small city living. People close, tempers close to the surface. One afternoon, I was on my way to grab a coffee when I saw her, the neighbor with the SUV, toss a fast food bag over the hedge like it was nothing. She didn't aim for the bin. She didn't glance around. She just threw it over, hopped in, and drove off. My first reaction was this weird mixture of incredulity and irritation. Like, come on, that's literally right in front of your building. Later that day, I walked past and saw the trash stuffed in the bushes, greasy paper poking through the leaves. The gardener was going to be upset. I stooped, picked the bag up, and, with this petty hero energy, I walked it over to her car. I propped it on the windshield. I lifted the wipers like some kind of passive-aggressive art installation. I imagined her seeing it and going, "Oh, oops." She'd toss it in a recycling bin, maybe feel silly. That was the plan. A reminder that common decency exists. Next morning, car gone. Trash still on the parking spot. No sign she'd cleaned it. I felt a little swelling of annoyance. Maybe she's forgetful, I told myself. Maybe she's having a bad week. So I picked it up again. This time I took the bag home. A couple of days later, I saw the same car again. I don't know which building she lives in. This place is packed. But there she was, idling like she owned the world. And I was tired of being the passive reminder. So I called my dad. Now, if you know me, you know my dad is this walking contradiction. He's prudent, practical, and somehow petty in the most precise way. He's the kind of man who once watched someone cut the line at a gas station and quietly let the air out of their tires. Not because he hated the person, but because he believed in slow, nonviolent justice. That's a whole other story. I told him what happened. He listened. There was silence on his end. That slow, measuring silence that meant he was thinking. Then he asked, almost casually, "Do you want to annoy her without hurting anything?" I laughed out loud. Yes, I want to annoy her until she learns what a bin is. He told me a trick. Zip ties and wipers, he said. Do it tight. Leave a note. Don't damage anything. Make her deal with the inconvenience. He explained it calmly, like it was a recipe. His voice had that steady, know-how quality that makes you trust nonsense. I won't lie. I hesitated. This felt petty. It felt small. But it also felt righteous. So that evening, while my dad pretended he was teaching me about civic responsibility, I walked over to my car and carried the tools with me. A pack of heavy zip ties, an envelope, and a pen. I waited until the evening, when no one was looking. I slipped to the parking row, found her SUV, and, heart thumping like I was a teenager again, I lifted the wipers, threaded the zip tie through, and tightened it as much as I dared without bending the metal. It was snug. It was ridiculous. I left the trash on the windshield and slid a note under the wiper that said, simply, "Please use a bin. If I see this again, next time it won't be just a note." Signed, a neighbor. Then I walked away like nothing happened. The next morning, I watched the spot like a hawk. Her car was there for a while, and then, finally, she left. I waited. The trash stayed. I waited some more. I imagined her gawking at the Tide wipers, having to take the elevator up to her apartment to get scissors, running late, muttering under her breath. Maybe she cursed. Maybe she panicked. Maybe she called someone to help. I liked imagining all of it. 2 days later, I saw the SUV again. This time, she looked around more cautiously, glancing at hedges, checking the bins. Maybe she'd learned something. Maybe she was paranoid. Either way, I felt a tiny, silly victory. You'd think the story ends there. Annoyance achieved, lesson delivered. But there were other layers to it. I told the story to a few friends, because honestly, it felt fun. It was such a harmless caper. The reaction surprised me. A couple of them were like, "Wait, zip ties? Genius." Another friend nodded thoughtfully and said, "Someone keeps parking in front of my driveway. Mind if I borrow your method?" I shared the concept, but I was careful. The whole thing only works if it stays relatively minor and non-damaging. One of my friends actually tried it. She had a neighbor who treated her reserved spot like some public gift wrap. She used the wiper trick, with my dad's blessing, and, true to the form, the neighbor was late one day. She had to clamber back up to her apartment for scissors. The spot remained respected after that. No escalation, no vandalism, just inconvenience. But there's always a fine line. The minute petty crosses into harm, you lose moral ground. My dad drilled that into me. Don't scratch the paint, don't break anything, and don't turn it into revenge porn. The point is to nudge behavior, not ruin lives. There was one twist I didn't control. After the note and the Tide wipers, I received a short email from our building manager. He'd been receiving complaints about retaliation. One of the other neighbors had seen me near the SUV and thought I'd done something worse. I felt my stomach drop. For a beat, I imagined all the consequences. But the manager's email was polite, asking me to keep disputes civil and reminding everyone of the building's code. I replied honestly. "I picked up trash, left a note. I did not damage property. I won't escalate. Sorry if it created a scene." He wrote back with a small human reply. "Thanks. We all love a tidy garden." And the neighbor? I'm not sure she ever learned to love bins. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. What I do know is this. The hedge was clean for weeks after, and the gardener stopped cursing my building under his breath. My little prank had the odd effect of making the area a little more civil. So what's the takeaway from a zip tie and a wiper? For me, it was more than a laugh. It was a lesson about boundaries, escalation, and the strange comfort of tiny, nonviolent justice. My dad was right. Petty can be wise. Petty can be a tool when you use it with restraint. And sometimes, a small, well-measured nudge is all it takes to change someone's habit. But here's the thing I tell everyone when they ask for the trick. Use your judgment. Don't be cruel. Don't be reckless. If your goal is to make a place better, make it better. If your goal is to humiliate, then walk away, because that's not the same thing. I still laugh when I pass that hedge. Sometimes I imagine the neighbor, now forever checking her rearview mirror for me. Sometimes I picture her learning to care. Mostly, I picture my dad grinning the way he does when his prudent mischief succeeds. If you liked this little story, tell me in the comments. And share a time when someone stole your piece and you fixed it in a way that was clever, harmless, and just a little satisfying.